monogamy piece. As in, I think sometimes people come into therapy and it's a situation where like they want to be monogamous, but either they don't know how to be monogamous or they haven't really thought about, well, what does it mean to actually get my mind ready to be in a monogamous relationship if I'm not there as of yet. But I think sometimes people kind of keep moving forward in the relationship because it's like, well, this is what you're supposed to do. I'm supposed to fall in love. I'm supposed to get married. I'm supposed to have the kids. And they don't pause to say, but am I really in a place right now mentally, physically, intimately, where I actually just want to be with one person?
Yeah, to that point, that would be one of my other points is overstimulation. And what I mean by that is people cannot deal with what a lot of people call boring, healthy relationship. It's no real stimulation. Like a lot of people are used to bad, toxic relationships.
Yeah.
So when they get into a healthy relationship where they don't got to figure out what their partner wants from them, their partner is checking off on all the boxes. There's no real argument. There's no toxicity. There's no talking to other people. They're bored because a lot of times people will get into a healthy relationship never actually being in one or seeing one at home in their home lifestyle.
Exactly.
So they're so used to dating a certain type of person, the type of person that keeps them on a guessing game. A lot of times people don't realize that you get attracted to a toxic relationship because it's stimulating the highs and lows. When it's good, it's really good. When it's bad, it's terrible. But when it's good, it's just that good. But when it's bad, it's bad. So a lot of times people think that that is love. So when they get into a healthy relationship and their partner is doing all the right things, they don't got to worry about where they are. They are where they say they're going to be. They're with who they say they're going to be with. They're not hard to get a hold of. They're easy to communicate with. They're taking them places. They're doing things. They get bored because they're underwhelmed because their system is so not used to it being like this. So what they do, self-sabotage. It will manifest as like restlessness or even anxiety.
Yeah.
Like they're anxious. They're worried that something's going to go wrong and nothing goes wrong. And they create the chaos. They literally recreate the environment that they say they want to leave from, but they're subconsciously looking for. Like, I say consciously I want a healthy relationship, but this is so boring. Like, I know what they doing. I know where they are. They're a real good person. And then, they do the whole, like, I know I don't want to leave this good person because this is a good person.
Yeah.
But then they go off and, well, let me dibble and dabble with this person to get that stimulation.
And another thing that I've seen is, and this one always fascinates me, people not fully accepting who it is that they decided that they were going to be with. By that, what I mean is this. Oftentimes people come to therapy and it's a case of, well, like, I knew that they had issues with spending. I knew that they had issues with intimacy. I knew they had issues with a variety of different things. But I would have thought that over time that those things would have been worked out, or that, they would have been changed, or that things just somehow would have magically moved in a different direction. And when people come to therapy, that usually kind of makes me sad because I have to be the one to tell them,
no, you got to accept who you was.
Exactly. As in, like, what you were seeing is what you got. Yeah. And it sounds like to me you had this unspoken expectation with them, or hope that you didn't share with them, that they were going to become more than what they actually were, or they were going to evolve into something more. I mean, I get it. As human beings, we're supposed to evolve. We should evolve, but only in certain ways. Yeah. And if you were with someone to where as though it's like, hey, I'm cool with just like being middle management, or I'm just cool just working the job where like I just earn a decent check. I'm not trying to do too much. And you're mad at them for not wanting to do too much, and they've always said that to you. Then it becomes a conversation about, well, where were the realistic expectations? And more importantly, where was the communication? Because there's a disconnect here, as in what it is that you thought that you were going to get from them versus what it is they've constantly shown you over a span of time of dating, what they were going to give and who they are.
I agree with that because did you get with who they are, not who you hope they would be.
That fall in love potential always gets people.
It always gets people. Like you'll craft this fairy tale of who they are, as opposed to.
I'm sorry to talk in the background. Is that not fair?
What's
don't
not fair?
You have to date off potential or meet somebody off potential.
You can date off of potential, but you don't lie to yourself though. Like you got to ask yourself, how much data do you need to get before you accept the reality of the situation? Everybody has potential. Like every human being has a potential and a capacity to be greater than what they are.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, when they are just saying it, but the action is baseline the same as when you met them, that's when you got to start accepting them for who they are. So there's nothing wrong with taking somebody for the potential that you see, because sometimes it takes other people to see better in you than you see in yourself to pull it out of you. That's the other thing I was going to get to, was a relationship is supposed to change both party members for the good. It's just sometimes it happens for the bad. So to your point, what you were saying, yes, there's nothing wrong with dating somebody for their potential. And I feel like Keith was going to say the same thing, where it's like, if you get with somebody y'all in the beginning stages and they check off the box and they seem like you got potential, like Summer Walker said, there's nothing wrong with that. Try it out. But at a certain point, you got to ask yourself, how much more do you need to see to realize that that's all that's going to be, is just potential, not reality.
And to his point, I always say this: you date potential, you can't fall in love with it.
You cannot.
You cannot fall in love with potential.
Fall in love with potential because it'll leave you. You'll change who you are. They're not going to change themselves.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I can honestly say that I've seen, is that you'll fall in love with their potential, and then you turn into the person you don't recognize because you made so many concessions on hope. Because you hope they will become the potential. So what you did was you changed yourself, hoping that they will do the same thing. And the only thing that they're going to do is be the way I've been.
Exactly. So when I say that, I really do mean when you decide to move forward with someone in a serious relationship, whether that translates to marriage or just a long-term relationship, it's a situation of you have to really be in love with that person and realize that the potential is not a promise. It is not a guarantee. And that when they don't, or if they don't fulfill that potential, are you still going to love this person enough to where it's well, who you are is enough for me and I love you? Or it's going to be a situation where it's like, I feel like I got robbed. I feel like I got gypped. I feel like you bamboozled me or you hoodwinked me. And in some instances, that does actually happen. But in a lot of instances, it doesn't necessarily happen the way that people think it does. It's a situation where it's like, you had hope for them to become whatever it was your vision was for them. And maybe to some extent, they even loved you because of the fact that you had that vision of them. But that's the thing with potential. It's not necessarily who they are. It may be who they may possibly become, but you can possibly become anything. And when you decide that you're going to be in a serious relationship with someone, it has to be, look, stinky draw, smelly feet, funny credit, middle management job, through all that, I love you. Because whatever it is that you're offering, that's enough for me and satisfactory. It can't be like, well, someday he gonna be running, he gonna be the CEO. someday he actually gonna wash his own laundry. Someday he gonna get that athlete feet together, right? Right. So I'm sorry, I had to put it out there.
Nah, you
right?
said stinky draws, athlete feet, messed up credit score.
Hey,
that's a bad combination.
It is, but what I'm saying though is this: if you choose to move forward with someone who has those things, and you're doing it more so because they have the potential again beyond those things, and it does not work out, unfortunately, that's your fault.
I want to pivot a little bit on the same topic. Yeah. I'll go back to what I was saying, because remind me that I was going to say was, you were right. There's the emotion of love, and then there's the choice of love. And you got to choose to love that person. Because a lot of times when people come to couples counseling, a part of this infidelity and healing from it, a part of that gambit is people are chasing an emotion. I hear like, it's not supposed to feel like this. We get to that. So you brought up an interesting point, Keith, because here's something that I want to say.
Yeah.
All right. Remember the movie Acrimony?
That's actually probably one of the only Tyler Perry films I liked.
Yeah. So Taraji was not wrong for kicking him out and deadening a relationship. She's an example of someone that fell in love with potential. All right. He was putting in the work to try to build it, but she's not wrong for severing a relationship because he took too many risks with her money. Now, as for those of you who don't know, go look at the movie. I'm not going to spoil it. I'm really not going to spoil it by saying this part. He lucked up and it hit big because another woman picked up the work that he did and ran it across the finish line for him to hit big. So in that example you gave right there, yes, you cannot fall in love with just potential because it will break you. She hung on. So all the life savings, the house, all that stuff, her relationship with her sisters, just for him to be like, I'm gonna do better, babe. I'm gonna do better. I'm gonna get it to work, and it never did. So yeah, I agree with your assessment because, but falling in love with the potential can be a trap. Now there are times, like you said, where the potential will manifest. That's 1,000% true. There's nothing wrong with that. Circling back to what I was saying about the emotion, chasing the emotion of love, and love being the choice. To what you said, a lot of times people tend to chase feelings. There's a fairy tale fantasy they built up in their head, and they're always trying to chase a feeling. Loving someone as in choosing them is different than that. The feeling is there, but you're loving them in spite of their flaws. You're loving them in spite of their shortcomings. I accept the person I see. If they get better and grow, absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. That is love as a choice. I see a lot of times people are looking for a romanticizing fairy tale emotional love. And I'm not going to tell them that they're wrong, because it's the emotional reactions in our bodies that draws us to situations, that draws us to people. But then when they realize, like we say, the honeymoon phase is over with, are you still choosing to love the person that you're sitting in front of? And I wanted to use that to segue, because as we were talking about, I couldn't help but think about it. When it comes to infidelity and healing from the infidelity, attachment plays a role in it. Like attachment styles,
big facts,
definitely play a big role in that, because there are many reasons why people cheat. And not to get long-winded, because I feel like I am getting long-winded. The third and final thing to the question that was brought up, it's a two-part. Finances and sex is the third. I'm lumping them together as one, because I already did two. Finances and sex are number three, because either somebody's not making enough money to handle the responsibilities, so they get frustrated, they leave and go sleep with somebody else, or sex. They love their partner. The sex just isn't as good as this person here. Yeah. So they go and do that. But Keith, let me ask you, because you actually know more about attachment styles than I do. How does attachment styles play a role in or explain healing after a relationship?
So when we're talking attachment styles, we're just talking about how people connect to other people in their lives, and attachment styles can translate from how children have connections with their parents, or how partners have connections with partners. So the cool thing about attachment styles is this: when you understand how you're connected to this person, it can liberate you to decide one or two things. One, what does it mean to create a healthy attachment, or within that model, a secure attachment? Or two, if it's a situation where you are convinced that a secure attachment cannot happen, what does it mean to let go of the attachment, right? So oftentimes, ideally, because there's 4 attachment styles, right? So ideally, we want secure attachment. It's like when we feel connected to someone, we're having great communication, we feel understood, we feel affirmed, everything is just healthy. That's always the goal for most of us. Most of us are always striving for that. But oftentimes, we find ourselves in one of the 3 other categories. And believe it or not, sometimes it fluctuates. We find ourselves in any given category at different times. So you have anxious attachment style, which is, okay, I'm not sure whether or not you actually love me or not, or if I even love you or not. It's just all this uncertainty that's floating around in the air, right? And then you have anxious. I gotta say it out loud. Anxious, secure,
ambivalent
attachment style, which is I'm not sure. Maybe kind of not really clear about whether or not this person is someone that you can actually be with or care about. And then anxious, ambivalent, and I always forget the last one, secure.
It's not avoidant, is it? Because avoidant is almost the same as anxious, right?
You know I'm about to pull up my cheat sheet.
No, you can pull that out. That's
you know I'm about to pull up my cheat sheet.
What I was going to say was the reason why I asked the question about the attachment style is, like you said, when people are in a secure and healthy relationship, they feel safe. That's a big part of it. So after an infidelity occurs, the person who is the quote-unquote victim of the infidelity, if they choose to stay, their alarm system is going on. Did you find out what was it?
I always forget. Secure, anxious, dismissive, and fearful.
Fearful. Okay.
Fearful.
And what is your example of fearful?
So fearful is pretty much you enter into a relationship with the expectation that, okay, somehow another things aren't going to work out. You're waiting for the other shoe to drop, not necessarily realizing that your fearfulness is actually what's kind of propelling the relationship to move in that direction. Because when we feel as though a relationship's going to come to an end, that's usually about the time that we start self-sabotaging and we just start doing things where it's like, well, it's going to end anyway, or we get so anxious and insecure or so afraid that we become really clingy that makes the other person feel like they're suffocating and realize, well, I can't do this.
Fair enough. So in that regard, little brother, so when after like an infidelity occurs and people are trying to heal, going with the thing that I was saying before is that there's a lack of safety in that, right? Like, for instance, people put their walls up. A lot of times people will put their walls up because their fight or flight system views this situation as unsafe. So I'm choosing to stay, but it just doesn't feel safe because a lot of times there's a lot of emotional pain that comes by way of being on the receiving end of infidelity. Hurt, betrayal, you were vulnerable with somebody, and then their imagination about what happened. Ladies and gentlemen, I will be the first to tell you, a man's imagination is his detriment. I've seen it in therapy. When men are victims of infidelity, their imagination runs to the wildest places of hurt. I'm not saying women don't do that at all. I'm saying that because I thought as a man who's experienced being cheated on, like, it was just me. Sitting across and hearing other men say it, it was like, okay, so it's not just me. Your imagination runs to some really hurtful places about what happened, when it happened, where it happened.
Is it going to happen again?
It's all those things. And it made me realize just what women tend to go through that they've been talking about for so long online. Like, you know how we always say that women are stronger than men when it comes to this? I agree, because it hurt. I don't know how to say that.
Well, my thing is always, whenever I hear that, I'm always curious to know, is it that women are stronger when it comes to that because we've always put them into position to where as though it's been normalized or even expected?
It could possibly be that, Keith. Because, you know, the planet itself is patriarchal. So men get away with so much more than women do. It is normalized that a man is going to cheat. As a matter of fact, growing up back in the day, what did grandmas used to say to like husbands, like, if you're going to cheat on my daughter, don't bring her home or do it out of town. Whatever those weird rules were back in the day that they used to have.
Yeah.
Like, it was just expected that was going to happen. So I agree with you. Maybe it could be that it's just been normalized. Because I'm not saying that it's true that women are stronger than. No, I am. Well, brother, I am saying that.
Well, I can believe it's true because
women are stronger than men when it comes to that regard because women are way more forgiving. In most cases, following infidelity, women are way more forgiving. Men, not so much. I'm being serious. Men are not as forgiving.
No, you're 100% correct on that, but not a but. It's a. I'll just say it. You're 100% correct in that, and I always feel bad for women because it's a situation where it's like I feel like that particular strength, if you want to call it that, is because of the simple fact that whether we know it or not, we condition them and get them prepared for that. That's something that's probably going to happen at some point with some man that you date. He's going to be with another woman. He's going to eyeball another woman. And you're going to kind of have to learn how to either forgive that or let go of the relationship or do whatever. Versus like, maybe now in the modern era, it might be a conversation. But growing up, I can't really recall too many adults saying like, oh, your woman's going to cheat on you. It's a case of just go out here and get yourself a good partner. Go out here and get yourself a good woman. Don't really have those conversations about the possibility. Yeah.
Nah, I ain't going to lie. Yeah,
you think about our upbringing. You also remember our upbringing was...
I'm thinking about our upbringing because I was definitely taught that they gonna cheat just like we gonna cheat.
Okay, I'm gonna say it's this: the person who taught you that, I need you to also put that in its proper context.
I am putting it in his but he wasn't necessarily wrong.
But that's
because you said modern era. I was actually going to say that modern era. I'm talking like in today's society. Yeah. I would think that it'd be irresponsible to not have that conversation with your son that, hey, look, she may cheat on you.
Well, definitely now, but put it this way. I would say even with our generation, I would say maybe we got those
definitely with our generation.
Well, I would say maybe with our generation, we more so got that conversation because the fact that the people. Okay, I'm being honest. Without throwing anyone underneath the bus, the people who were having conversations with us about women cheating were also the ones who were cheating themselves.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I agree with that.
So my whole thing was, it's a case of you're not wrong, but it's also a situation where I have to put in the context of like, but the people that you're hanging out with and that you're dealing with, they're more prone to cheat because that's just the culture of the people that you're dealing with. Versus like if I grew up in a household where like even if it wasn't traditional in the sense of 2-parent household, even if it's a single parent household, how many young men do you believe, and I hate to use this stereotype, how many young men do you believe that their mother's telling them or preparing them for like, oh, well, you know, she's going to cheat on you or a girl's going to cheat on you at some point and you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to really accept that or really have to work through that versus them having that conversations with their daughter saying, at some point it's going to happen and you're going to have to figure out what it is you want to do.
I ain't got nothing to say to that. You right, well, brother. You right on that one because when you said that, in my head, thinking like as a man, I raised my eyebrow like accept it,
exactly.
accept it.
Exactly. And I don't want to say
there's a door, there's an exit. I'm good. Yeah, I was just literally just validating your point because I was like accept it, but you're right because to women, I could see women having to have that conversation because. Yeah, Keith, you're 1,000% correct. So I'm thinking that back to like when I talk to my male clients who have committed infidelity, when they say to me that their lady is overthinking and they think that I really love this woman and I'm not, it was just sex. I see where they're coming from. I believe you. I get it. From one man to another, I get it. You were just consistent with it, yeah, but. You just wanted to have sex, but to them it's a little bit different. So to your point, like I'm pretty sure that comes from a place of potentially like he's cheating. Men cheat. Yeah. What are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to accept it or move on? Because one or the other is going to happen. If he don't, the next will. But from a man to man having a conversation, if I know that you got one woman that you really care about, that you genuinely love, and you may have a few pieces on the side that I wouldn't expect you to have the same emotional attachment for that you would for the one that you love. However, that does happen.
But see,
I always tell people if you're going to cheat, don't cheat too long. Because if you cheat too long, I'm serious. The equation, everybody take this with you. The equation for liking is this. I say this to my clients all the time. Yeah. Proximity, frequency, duration, and intensity. How close you are in any given space to one another, how often you meet one another in that space, how long you're going to be in that space, and how intense is it? Like, what are you doing? Work, play, things like that. Yeah. If you have all four of those together, you're going to find a reason to like them, and you might even slip up. That's why a lot of people, the person that they cheat on their partner with, tends to be a coworker. Yeah. You have all four aspects of liking right there. Yeah. Proximity, frequency, duration, and intensity. You do. It's more than likely going to be a coworker. Or it could be a random person on the street as well. But it's statistically, apparently, it's more likely to be a coworker. From the last time I heard that, the statistics, I have to find it for you guys. But the last time I heard, I said you're more likely to cheat with a coworker.
See, well, and to the earlier point, it's just something that was just popping in my head, which is this. Even the narratives that we get in movies, TV shows, books, it's geared towards the man cheats. The woman goes through this journey of hurt. And not all the time, but a good chunk of the time, it's a case of forgiveness. He makes penance. He tries to prove that, oh, he's a good man. And it's a case of like, okay, well, we can work through this. We can work through this. You do not get that many narratives or films, books, series or shows where a woman steps out on her relationship and the man actually forgives her. It's a case of usually those stories go like, yeah, he's heartbroken. He drinks. He goes out here, whores about. But it's a situation for the most part. It's like, okay, toss it to the side. Find your next partner. With the only exception I can think of where like that was explored in a very healthy and responsible way, in my opinion, was in Insecure between Lawrence and Issa. As in, Issa cheated. Lawrence went on this journey of just kind of being broken, finding himself, to ultimately, by the time, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen Insecure.
If you haven't seen Insecure at this point, this is not a spoiler.
Exactly. But
Like, there's a time limit to that.
exactly. It got to the point where at the end, maturity kicks in and realizing, that this happened, but it wasn't necessarily a case of trying to hurt the other person. It was a case of like, we were in bad spaces in our lives. I wasn't secure in myself as a professional, as a boyfriend. You weren't insecure. You were insecure about yourself as a girlfriend, as a professional. To where as though that happened because of that, and we had to take these journeys where we became more fully formed, more secure, more confident to actually come back together after all of that. And I love that. But you don't really get those many narratives in regards to men. It's just a case of she cheated. All right, well, you go out here, you get a new wife, get a new girlfriend, go on about your business.
Yeah, little brother, right now in my headspace, I don't see a disagreement with that. I think that if you had a movie that way where the woman cheated on the man, it'd be a pretty depressing movie, man.
To your point about the imagination piece.
Right, to the imagination piece, but also that men were not given a lot of space, as you very well know, to express all gambits of the emotion. So we're really good at expressing a small number of them, like depression, you feel depressed, but you wouldn't call it that. Sadness and anger and aggression. So I would say that the movie would, and it's not to say I'm not doing like who has it worse following an infidelity. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just listening to you and responding to it because, as you say, you're right. There is a narrative given to women that's not necessarily given to men, but I feel like it may be given to men of this generation moving forward because the nature of the culture has shifted. Like, female rappers going harder than the male rappers these days. Like, they keep a healthy rotation for what I hear online, so it's gradually shifting. But pivoting back to like healing after a relationship, because you gave me a lot to think about. Definitely did, because you're right. I never considered that there is a narrative given to women about accepting the reality of men cheating. There's not necessarily the same narrative given to men. However, I am a therapist that can say from my clientele, women do cheat more than men, or engage rosters more than men do. Like, really? I'm so serious. That's why I never judge a human being. But from the clientele that I have, they're all adults. They all know what they're doing. Women, it's not cheating if you're dating around. You know what I'm saying? So women will, and let me clarify that. They're more willing to date more people. They're more willing to go out with more people. They are more willing to say, I'm going take this person, see how it goes, and I'm going to, talk to other people on the side type thing. So if you don't consider that cheating, then that's not cheating. I'll call that reality, whatever you call it. Yeah. So I'll just say that's what they'll do. They'll do that more than men do. Men will talk to multiple people. Women will definitely talk to multiple men. That don't mean they're sleeping with them. But they are more likely to entertain a broader group of people than a broader group of options than men would. Yeah. If you want my honest opinion from my experience. That doesn't necessarily translate to them sleeping with them. But you did give me a lot to think about as far as like a narrative being pushed, because you're right. Yeah, we would need to have another guest on here to talk about that.
We definitely need a female therapist.
Female perspective. But healing, though, what I was getting at earlier, the reason why I brought up attachment styles was because a lot of times people don't recognize that following a fallout of cheating, someone no longer feels safe in this space. Their attachment style has shifted. Yes. I've seen that happen a lot. I thought that we were on the same page. I thought we was doing good. Then you went out and cheat. What went from a secure attachment style, I'm assuming, Keith, is now a fearful one. Is that safe to say? Yeah. And that example that I just gave there.
Yeah, it can be. It can go to any of those categories. It could become fearful. It could be dismissive. Dismissive is one of my favorite. Dismissive is one of my favorite ones when you've hurt someone so badly and they're still with you, but they just kind of intellectualized how to deal with you in the sense of like, okay, well, I'm going to go out. Okay. Well, just be safe. That's it. Yeah, that's all I can say to you. It's like, I'm just hoping that you get out there, that you make wise decisions, and you come home safely.
To me, as a therapist, that's numb. I always explain this to clients. Relationships that go bad have two ways of dealing with you. Toxicity or corrosiveness. Yeah. And the way I explain it is, Toxicity is more like a boiling point on the inside. It's energizing, it's charged, it's poisonous. Corrosiveness is, the example I always give is, if you imagine a statue in a sandstorm. Well, all of a sudden the sandstorm and hit the statue so many times that all those key defining features like the nose, the eyes, things like that, cut shoulder, they start to smooth out and become more round.
Yeah.
When a person does that, I always attribute that to, oh wow, like you're at the corrosive stage of it all. This horror. Yeah, I guess would it be erosive, whatever it is, that because you've been hit and bombarded by this so much, you're checking out. You're numb. You're here. It's like the example is, if I find out that they're doing it, I'm definitely gone this time. I'm not gonna go looking for it. I don't want to go looking for it, but if I find it, I'm definitely gone. So to me, that also sounds like putting your guard up, putting your wall up. After an act of infidelity, there is a really strong fallout with the person that was on the receiving end of it, to where they are now on the defensive, autonomically, meaning their fight or flight system. This relationship isn't safe at a subconscious or implicit level, but consciously you're telling yourself, I'm going to stay, I'm going to be here. Because there's you actually do, people still love somebody following them, cheating on them, but they choose to stay. And what they're doing is they're fighting all of their alarm systems telling them to go. All of those emotions that come up with that telling them that this isn't safe, this definitely hurts. So I think that a lot of times people don't recognize that is the internal suffering of the person who is the victim of cheating.
You're 100% correct. And whenever couples come in for couples therapy post infidelity, I'm always the first person to just be very direct and ask them this. So you guys may not have an answer for this as of now, but at some point in this journey of doing couples therapy, you're going to have to. Is this a couples therapy of you two trying to move past the infidelity, or is this a couples therapy where you want me to professionally observe you two and tell you two that, hey, from what I'm seeing, I don't think that this is going to work. Now, granted, as a therapist, you want to be precautious, very cautious when you say that. But after a certain point in therapy, when you realize, okay, we're not utilizing tools, we're not really engaging in any type of constructive conversation, this is just turning into a referee match almost every other session, it becomes a situation where I feel like unconsciously, sometimes they want you to be the one to tell them, maybe it's time to explore the possibility of what it would look like to separate or go your separate ways.
I would love to talk to you about referee matches, because I actually let them play out. When I'm in couples counseling, I let them play out to see if they're actually going to steer this ship towards finding common ground. So when there are times in couple sessions where when a couple is arguing, I do not interject, I do not butt in. I wait to see, because it never fails to surprise me when I put my faith in them. One of them will hear something and go, what does that mean? And I'm like, okay, all right, now we're steering the ship now, because instead of defending, you're getting inquisitive. I'm not saying that what you said is wrong. I agree. Like, sometimes you got to referee, like, y'all got to, all right. There are times where I step in and be like, y'all are now starting to stab each other with daggers. Because there's moments where somebody be like, wait a minute, because they just heard the other person's perspective. Yeah. So now they're actually asking, what are you talking about? And I like how you said that, because, yes, sometimes you got to ask, are we here to heal? Or am I your last resort before you break up?
Yeah. And also, because couples therapy, particularly when it's the result of infidelity, it is one of the toughest journeys for any couple, but it's also one of the toughest journeys for the clinician.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's one of those situations where
I'm sorry, Keith. I don't know who told the public that couples can be healed in 8 sessions, 4 sessions. No. I don't know who told y'all that. No. And they are wrong.
No.
They are horribly wrong.
They are.
I've been seeing this online. I can fix any problem in 4 to 8 sessions. How?
Look, I'll say this. One, I think that when I hear that in my mind, I think to myself, depending on what type of therapy you're doing, maybe it
must really be intense.
It must be communication, a communication issue that you're working on, which I can understand.
Yeah, I can understand that.
But as soon as I know we're coming in here for infidelity, in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, this is never going to be 8 sessions, for the simple fact of we have to run through the gamut from A to Z of emotions.
Yes.
And recognizing that at least as a clinician, recognizing at any given point in any session, any emotion is gonna pop up. It could be a situation where they're coasting, they're cool. There's gonna be a situation where somebody's angry. There's gonna be a situation where someone's hurt. There's gonna be flashbacks. And there's gonna be a situation where something happens and it's like, well, I felt like it was a possibility that you could have, or you didn't do X, Y, and Z, and then you realize, okay, here we go. Let's work through this roller coaster because the emotions are getting heightened, and then we're trying to get them down, and then actually talk about what it is we need to talk about. I mean, of course, talk about the emotion, but also talk about what are these thoughts behind this emotion. Where did this come from? So to your point, it's in those type of situations, it's never going to be just 8 to 10 sessions.
Because to your point, the analogy I always give people following infidelity and them coming to couples counseling is, when you're the one that did the cheating, it's easy for you to, move past it.
Yeah.
I always describe it like this. There was a tornado or hurricane caused by your action. You're able to step out of it. Your partner is still in it, looking for a way out. It's literally like, you've seen the movie Twister. I know you have. When that movie is inaccurate as all heck because it's done ripped up concrete trees, but yet you found leather straps and a anchored bar to the ground, and
actually keep you strapped to from getting sucked into a Hurricane 5. I mean, a level 5
hurricane
tornado.
Like your limbs or tornado, your limbs didn't break, your neck didn't snap. Like, get out of here, right?
You gotta love Hollywood.
I just wanted to say that because I was watching the remake of the movie Twister recently.
Yeah,
I thought it was pretty good. I'm not gonna lie.
I
thought it's actually really good. I would say look at it because when I saw it, I was like, all right, this is a lot more believable than. What was his name, Keith?
Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt.
Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt strapping themselves to this one single rod, and your limbs not getting ripped to pieces. Like, your limbs didn't get ripped to pieces. Like, the rod, you didn't break a rib. Like, from getting sucked in or suffocated. I digress. I'm sorry, everybody. But it's literally like you're able to step in and out of the storm. Your partner can't see a way out of it. And that's how I always like to describe the process because to how you broke it down, that's the analogy I give. We're trying to get the person and you to help calm this storm.
Yeah.
Because forgiveness, which is interesting to say because I'm a full-blown Christian believer, minister and everything. Forgiveness is on a spectrum. Forgiveness, while Jesus Christ said it's easy, I'm not saying that he is wrong. For the rest of us human beings, though, forgiveness is on a spectrum. There are days where our producer's laughing at what I said. It's the truth. I get I'm not saying he's wrong. Because I sit with pastors. I love my pastor. I work with pastors.
Yeah.
And a lot of them will preach that, forgiveness is easy. Christ said forgive like that. And I am not going to sit here and tell you that Christ is wrong. I'm not. I'm just say for every other human being on this planet, there are some people who are at that place.
Yeah.
There are some people that are at, I forgive you based upon your relationship.
Yeah.
Like, is there no, that's fair enough. For this situation here, what I am saying is that forgiveness, everybody, I want you to know, it's a spectrum. And on that spectrum, it slides like this. There's a little ball in the middle, and it slides all the time. There are days where you are going to fully forgive that person. If you're the one that did the cheating, they're going to fully forgive you. If you're the one cheated on, you're going to fully forgive them. And then all it takes is one little reminder in your environment, and it tilts the other way slightly, or it fully tilts to unforgiveness. Yeah. It can. I just want to point that out. So those are the type of things that we're working through to heal after an infidelity. And one way of answering that question of how do you heal after it is, it's one of those things where we have to reinstill trust and safety. Yeah. Security. Reestablishing a secure attachment. I keep pointing to Keith because I know Keith knows more. He definitely knows more about attachment styles than me. I'm purely speaking from like a brain-based approach and how I would do therapy. So we got to reinforce safety in the relationship. And unpopular opinion, Keenan, make this a real. This is an unpopular opinion, but it must be said. We also have to figure out what the relationship did to force one of the members to go out and seek comfort or X, Y, and Z in another person.
Thank you.
That is an unpopular opinion because a lot of people are like, I didn't do anything. I wasn't wrong. They cheated.
Which,
and I hate to be the one to tell you this. I'm not justifying them going out and doing it, but we do need to figure out what played a factor in it.
I 100% agree with that, because it's possible, but it's very seldom that infidelity just happens because they're just greedy. They just wanted to cheat.
Right.
Usually there's a fuller and richer narrative of how we got to this point. And usually in those conversations, it's a situation of, so in this situation, maybe there's accountability on both parts. Now, that doesn't excuse how the person who cheated decided to deal with whatever it is they were doing internally in regards to the relationship, or even things outside the relationship. It doesn't excuse it, but it's also a situation if I had to understand that in this broader context. If it's a situation where, well, such and such cheated, okay, well, how's communication been between two of you? We don't really talk. We haven't talked in the last 2 years in any type of meaningful type of way. What do you guys know about each other right now at this stage in your life? Not a lot. We haven't really been connected. We've been disconnected for the last 2 years. Okay, then we have to talk about that, because even if I take the infidelity out of the equation, two people have been feeling disconnected and both are acknowledging the fact they have not been talking. So that right there lets me know that's a 50-50 split. And that's not to, again, absolve the person of the infidelity, but it does speak to, well, why the infidelity may have occurred. And so it's having to have those hard conversations about how do we get to this point? What was going on? And having to have some really hard conversations and have to face some really ugly truths, not even just about our partner, but also about ourselves and how we show up.
Yeah, you can. Everybody, I'm going to give a small example. You cannot talk to your partner any type of way you want. You just...
No.
Nah, you cannot.
It always hurts you later on down the road, way worse than it
does.
hurt them.
And I'm thinking that because I have two couples that graduated recently from therapy, and that was the thing in common. One partner was very aggressive talking to the other person. Like they were just very disrespectful, to where they were like, you know what, forget it. You want to talk to me this way? I'll go find somebody else that won't talk to me this way. That's just one example that came to mind to the point of what you were saying, because that's a big part of the healing process. There's an action and a reaction. Yes, people, I know my younger brother said that it doesn't normally happen that somebody just goes out and sleep. Sometimes it is that. Sometimes your partners they're very sexual. They want to go out. They just want to dibble and dabble and come home. They want to have their cake and eat it too. That's different. We're talking about the other situations where it's not as common. It's mainly other things that come into play. Because the reason why we have to address that is because just like you were cheated on and you don't feel safe, something happened to them that made them want to go and seek something or crave something elsewhere. So it's a full form of healing, if I could say that phrase a little bit. We got to deal with the infidelity and the fallout and how it's impacting the relationship now. Then we got to do a little bit of, work where we go, how did we get here? Like what was the catalyst or the precursor to the behavior, so that way we don't get here anymore. And
you see, what I love about couples therapy is, to tie back to what we said earlier, that really does become the exercise of really doing one or two things. Really learning, did you actually fall in love with the person, or did you fall in love with the potential, the ideal of the person? And the other side of that is, if you fell in love with the ideal of the person, do you want to start now to actually fall in love with the person, knowing their flaws? Yeah, I'm going to tell you right now, you got to get rid of that ideal. I'm just, you're not my client right now, but I'm going to tell you right now, just free information for you to have. You got to let go of the ideal and deal with who you have. Yes. Work with what you have, not with what you hope for. Because going back to when our producer asked, are you wrong for falling in love with their potential? No, you are not. But I need you to ask yourself this question, everybody. How much more do you need to see before you accept that the potential is just potential? It's not turning into a reality. And have you even shared that with the person? Like, this is what I need to see. Or another thing is, do you know what you need to see? Yeah. That's another thing as well, because a lot of times we know what feels good, but we don't know how to describe it or express it. So, yes, not making sure you fall in love with potential. That's the precursor to it all. But healing afterwards mainly does come back down to,
how do we, at least for me, I'm not going to speak for my younger brother, how do we get you back to feeling safe? And then how do we address, like you said earlier, that gambit of emotions? Because now we got to be able to help you both go from a place of, okay, I'm feeling triggered. Can you communicate that? Do you feel comfortable communicating to your partner, I'm feeling triggered, I'm having thoughts? Okay, what do you need from your partner in those moments when you're triggered? Like, do you need to be alone? Do you need them to talk to you? Do you need to look at each other and breathe? Things like that. Have you gotten off your chest everything that you felt? Do you need to journal more? You know, do you two need to talk about what the fallout was with each other on your own as well as in therapy? There are many steps you can take, but what it is getting you both back to a sense of a secure attachment, a baseline, or safety, because you both now are in flux. You're upset because you were cheated on and you can get triggered at any time. They could be potentially anxious, wondering when you're going to be triggered again. And then here we are. I see it all the time. They haven't let it go. Why are we still holding on to this? It happened 6 months ago. It happened a year ago. We don't know how long they're going to hold on to it. We don't know their emotional receptiveness to situations. Yeah. It could be really, really intense for them. And at the end of the day, also, healing after infidelity requires a commitment on both parts. It does. Are you willing to put in the work to rebuild trust? You can't break something and then get mad at how long it's taking to repair it. In this situation, that's not how that works. Yeah. It could take a year. It could take 6 months. Or would you rather them lie to you? Because I've seen that happen too. I've seen them say, I forgave them. Yeah. And then later on down the road, it's like, I didn't forgive them. Exactly.
The healing part, and one of the hardest part of the healing part is you have to have an openness to not just forgiving, but also trusting. There has to be an openness. And even when you come into therapy, it's a case of, I'm okay with clients saying, like, I don't have that openness. It's like, okay, well, we can work towards that if that's something you want to do. But it's having to acknowledge the fact that at some point in that process, that is going to have to be something that happens. Because if it isn't the openness to actually forgiving the person and trusting the person, then it really is a case of them, why continue? Because at that point, it's just a case of, we're just staying together for the kids, or we have so much money and so many things tied in with each other, it makes no sense to leave, and that's just insufficient.
But I can respect why somebody would be reluctant to open up, because you're protecting yourself. Your amygdala and fight or flight system are definitely on alert because you just got hurt. Yeah. So, and to what you were saying, I can respect why somebody's like, yeah, I don't want to open back up again, because that level of pain is really, really great. Which is real. And if you can't, that's totally understandable. But where it gets confusing is you can't not open up and then still try to have this relationship. Or that relationship, because that is going to, if the infidelity was painful and destructive, that's going to be even more destructive, because then it's going to be a situation of, if I can't open up and trust you, but I can't let you go, then we're pretty much holding each other prisoner. And that's when that's more context. I see what you mean. Yeah.
And that becomes a situation where, like, now it's going to be resentment, and then when resentment comes into play, then that's when all the visceral really comes out. The pettiness starts coming out. The passive aggressive digs or the direct digs.
You know, to your point, you're right about that, because you're right. If you're going to stay and not be willing to go through the steps of healing, there's really no point in staying, because I'm not saying it's too far gone, but you're that hurt, so that might require individual work.
Or even sometimes it's a situation where if you're not able to do that right now, and it's not unusual because, well, of course, now we call it spinning the block. If it's a situation where, like, look, we just need to part ways and live lives separately, and then kind of have experiences away from each other. And then if we decide to come back around and meet up again to try it again, that's perfectly fine. But to stay when you're not open, that is a detriment to oneself and the other person and any children that may be involved in the situation.
And to your point, the opposite side of the spectrum is you can't force another person to open back up neither.
This is true.
Yeah, that's not how that works. If you try to force them, they're going to resist and they're going to run away. For the sheer fact that, like, they've shut down and built up walls for a reason. It's to protect themselves. It does. It's going to come down to them protecting themselves, because emotionally this isn't a safe space, and mentally they're too taxed to deal with it. So yeah, you're right. You can't. You have to be willing to open up, but you can't force another person to open up. That's why I said it may require a little bit of individual work, Like, for instance, you may have to come to therapy on your own to work out exactly what it did to you so you could put it in words.
Exactly.
One thing why everybody needs therapy is because of this. The relationship that you build with your therapist creates a space for you to open up your emotions in a way you've never done before.
Yeah.
You take a situation or a thought from the past or your present and you explore it in a place where we're not going to judge you, we're going to walk you through, we're going to help you identify things. That type of work, a healthy relationship like that, where you could pour or pull out of yourself things that you didn't know was there, helps to open you back up. Because using the infidelity as an example, you may have been so hurt that you cry at night that you try not to never feel that emotion or pain again. But in therapy, you pull it out and we sit with it with you.
Yeah.
You don't sit with it alone, to where now where it felt like this as you sat with it at the end of the therapy session, it feels like this. Then you go back to what you was doing. You come back here, we open it up again, then it feels like this. Then you put it away. You come back again and it feels like this, and then it shrinks again, to where all of a sudden, I'm pretty sure you've heard this, Keith, where people are like, the crazy thing is I can actually talk about it now.
Yeah.
Because we've sat with it in front of us and we've looked at it from different angles, to where now it still hurts. There are lessons learned from it. There's insight given because of it, but you're also not overwhelmed by it. So if you're in a place where you can't open up, it may require you to do some individual work, then potentially go into couples counseling afterwards, so you can get into the space of finding the right language to explain what you're dealing with. You can do the closing, man.
Oh, my closing thoughts on this?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, wow, I feel special. Okay. No, so I'll just say this. You
should. You're a doctor. Why would you not feel special?
Well, I appreciate that, sincerely.
You're welcome.
Look, infidelity is something that can be worked through, but it really does require work on both ends. And also recognizing that the big part, and I'm sorry to say this earlier, is being patient with each other's processes. To your point, as far as, well, you can't force someone to be open themselves back up again. As the other person on the other side of that, you got to be patient with their process of opening back up to you. So if that does take like a year or 2 years, you just going to have to take the L on that one. And it's not even really taking the L. You just have to accept the fact. Exactly.
I mean, you did it.
It's just having to accept the fact that.
No judgment though. Yeah. But you did it. That's why you got to give them some time.
And then also having to be patient with ourselves, because if we're really trying to make an atonement for infidelity, we have to practice patience with ourselves and forgiveness of self, as in, if you really do care about the person, you have to forgive yourself for the fact that you hurt them. And then two, also have to go through the journey of being forgiven. If you're the person on the other end, you really have to be honest with yourself about who you are and where you are, and your ability to be able to really kind of open back up and forgive the person.
Correct.
If you know that you can do it, but it's going to be a struggle, then by all means stick with it. If it's a situation where you're not sure, communicate that. If it's a situation where you know you simply just cannot and will not do it, then having that brave conversation and letting the person know that, look, I can't do it, and I think that means that we cannot move forward. But at the end of the day, it's just having to be honest with ourselves, patient with ourselves, honest with the other person, patient with the other person, in that journey of trying to figure out what does it mean to move forward after infidelity has occurred.
Yeah, and I really meant that there's no judgment in that. Like, therapy is not a morality. I often say, like, this isn't like a morality thing when you come to therapy. You live your life by your morals, and I just walk with you on it. So literally, if you committed the act of infidelity, I really meant what I said by it. It's not a judgment thing. It's not. You just got to understand that they're in a lockdown mode to protect themselves. If you're going to stay with them following the act of infidelity and you want to make the relationship work, you truly do got to be patient with them while they reopen up. Because at the end of the day, this is the consequences of an action that was committed by you, unfortunately. No judgment at all, but it's just to let you know that while they are struggling to open up, you got to be patient with them while they're opening up. Just because you can walk in and out of the tornado doesn't mean that they can't just yet. They can't. They're still stuck in it. They don't see the pathway out like you see. So that's why you got to be patient with them. With that being said, all right, everybody, like, comment, subscribe. Definitely hit that like button. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you made it this far in the video. And always, you can email us and give us some ideas for topics to talk about. We love to see it. We actually see you guys' comments. I do. I see them all the time. Some of them are funny. Someone told me that I look like I cry in my pillow at night. And then they told me, just kidding. All love. I was like, I'm trying to figure out how I look like I cry on my pillow at night.
I was told that this here baldy glistens on the camera. And actually someone reached out to me and said, like, how do you do that? 5-blade razor.
A 5-blade razor?
A 5-blade razor. Some apple cider vinegar.
No single blade?
No single blade. 5-blade. I want it close. So apple cider vinegar and then